Hey folks, Backgrounds here. How you doing? Over the weekend we celebrated International Tabletop Day. Now, International Tabletop Day is a day that Geek and Sundry with Felicia Day we created to try and bring new people into the hobby. They promoted this vigorously, and they had sent out promo stuff to stores, and they encouraged people all over the world to host an event to bring non-gamers into the hobby. Now, over the weekend, I did this at my house with 3 people who are pretty much never played hobby games before. So it's a wonderful way just to bring people closer together and introduce them to this very social hobby. So we introduced some very basic gateway games to these people who came over. It was 5 in total. It lasted about 4 or 5 hours, and afterwards I thought, being that the name of my show is Agatewaygamer, maybe I should make a list of games that any non-hobbyist could get into. There's 10 games on the list. There's no particular order. They're just 10 games I think anybody who has never played a hobby game before can pick up on pretty easily. Out of these 10 games, we did actually play a few of them with this group of non-gamers that we played with on International Tabletop Day, but the rest of them have been played with non-gamers over the course of this year. So the first game on the list is Ticket to Ride. Now, Ticket to Ride is a set collection game where players draw secret routes, and they're trying to complete these routes to gain victory points at the end of the game. And whatever routes they do not complete, they will subtract victory points, depending on how much the route is worth. And throughout the game, they're going to draw different colored cards to try and complete routes on the board that match up with that particular color. And then they will set their little cars down on these routes and gain victory points that way. And then at the end of the game, they'll combine that, or combine all the victory points and subtract any that they have from not completed routes. And whoever has the most victory points wins the game. This is a game that Jen and I got very early in my exploration into the hobby, and it's still one we play today. There's different variants to it, different maps, and different other base games, but we still play it, and we still play it with a lot of non-gamers. So that's a game that anybody can pick up on easy. It's a gateway game. It's been around they're actually celebrating their 10th year. It's proven to be a quintessential gateway game. Next is Forbidden Island. Forbidden Island is a cooperative game in which players play against the game to try and get off this island that they had came on by helicopter to collect these treasures and ultimately get off the island before it sinks. Now, players will take on different roles, and they will try and collect these treasures as tiles on the island are flipped around and representing that it's sinking. They're underwater. And this is done by drawing cards through a deck. And if the card is drawn a second time, while the island is underwater, it'll disappear from the island. It'll be sunken. And, I like cooperative games because it's all open, and people who are brand new to the hobby don't feel that awkward feeling of I don't know what to do, because if they run into something, they're stuck, just say, hey, what do I do? Everything's open. Everybody, is trying to win against the game itself. Problem with cooperative games, there could be an alpha player situation, and the more experienced players will have to work on that and try and tone that down. It's just something built into cooperative games, but it can be worked around. The next one is Dominion. Dominion is the grandfather of deck builders. You know, and it's one of those games where you're drawing cards and trying to combo them to gain money and then eventually gain victory points. So anybody used to card games can pretty much pick this up. Anybody really can. I mean, it's not a difficult a game to understand, and you know, at first you'll be intrigued by the ways you can combo different cards and the way some of these cards in your kingdom will be able to let you take certain effects in the game, you know, to ultimately to gain these victory points at the end. It is we have played this with non-gamers, including my sister at the time. She was just, you know, joining us in the hobby, and it's not a game I play often though, because of my hands. You know, the shuffling bothers me, but it is, you know, a good introduction into the deck building genre. The next game is a party game called Dixit. Now in Dixit, one player will have a card with art on it, and they have to come up with an idea to describe this card. Okay, they could use a phrase, a word, even a sound, you know, and they want to have at least one other player vote on this card, you know, saying that this is what they think the idea is, or they don't want everybody to vote on the card. If everybody votes on the card, then that player doesn't score points. But if other players vote on another player's card, that person will score points also. The scoring's a little wonky, but it's just a fun card. It's a fun game, and I've played this with several different groups, and we've always had a good time with it. This is actually one I played this weekend with brand new people to the hobby, and we've always had fun with this game. We've actually played this one, I think it was 3 times in a row. Now they have expansions on it, which is good, because Genevieve played this so much, you just start seeing the same cards over and over again. And, you know, actually my sister's kind of funny. She gets this one that looks like a purse with a mouth, you know, a little monster purse. It's got a mouth and all that. She always seems to get that card. So, if you're going to go out and get it, I advise you to just start off with the base game, and then, you know, later on work your way into the expansions. I bought another one and mixed it in, and it does bring fresh life to the game. Okay, so that was Dixit. Next we have Sorrow of the Sea. Now, Sorrow of the Sea it's actually the sequel to Sorrow, which is kind of an abstract game where you're dragons who are trying to stay on the board. Basically, you follow these paths around. Sorrow in the Sea is a little more complex, where there's these sea monsters, and they move around the board, and if you run into them, you're eliminated. Or if you follow this path that goes off the board, you're eliminated, stuff like that. But the reason I picked Sorrow of the Sea over Sorrow is even though it's a little more strategic than Sorrow, I think it's still quite an easy game to get into. And after the first turn, maybe 2, people will pick it up, you know, with the monsters and all that. Then it's a quick game, 20 minutes, you know, depending on the amount of people you play with. And this goes up to, excuse me, this goes up to 8 people, I think. I'm not sure offhand, but I think it was up to 8. So, a quick little filler game, Sorrow of the Sea. Next we have Rampage. Rampage is this fun dexterity game. You're in this town that has different buildings in it, made up of meeples and boards that the meeples stack up on. And you as the player are these monsters who are going around devouring the city. and you score points at the end of the game by the most floors that you eat of the buildings that these meeples are, make up, or the meeples themselves, depending on your character and your special abilities and whatnot. This is how you gain points, and it's just this fun little game. You can flick buses across the board and try and knock buildings down, or other players, and gain points that way. And you can only eat as many meeples as you have teeth, and if other players attack you, you lose one of your teeth and they eat it, or if your monster gets knocked off the board, you lose it too, stuff like that. And it's a fun little dexterity game. You just end up laughing when you play this. You flick your little feet around, and if you're butted up against a building, you can then pick your monster and drop it on the building and knock it over. It's just a fun game. So that's Rampage. Okay, next we have King of Tokyo. Now, King of Tokyo is basically a very fun dice chucking game in the Yahtzee style. What you want to do is you have these monsters, and there's a board depicting Tokyo, and depending on how many players you have, either one or two monsters can occupy Tokyo at any given time. And basically what you want to do is either try and kill all the other monsters or gain victory points. Okay, and basically this is done by rolling dice and matching up the symbols. If you roll numbers, if you roll 3 of the same number, you will get 1 victory point, and then for each additional number of the same type thereafter, you'll get an additional victory point. If you roll a claw, you will attack everybody outside of Tokyo if you are in Tokyo, or the player inside of Tokyo if you are outside of Tokyo. If you roll heart symbols, you will be able to heal if you are not occupying Tokyo. And then if you roll lightning bolts, you will gain these little cubes, these little green energy cubes that you could buy cards that'll give you special abilities for later on. Okay, and then if you are the monster occupying Tokyo, you will gain a victory point every round that you stay inside of Tokyo. So this is one that I played with my niece and nephew. They're at the time they were 9 and 10. And anybody could pick up on it. Just roll the dice, match them up. The cards give special abilities and all whatnot. It's a fun little dice chucking game. Now there are expansions to it, and most people swear that they won't play it without the power-up expansion. I don't know. I haven't bought it. It's one that doesn't come out as often enough for me to buy an expansion for. But if you get into it, buy the expansions and have fun with it. So that was King of Tokyo. Next we have Rise of Augustus. Now, Rise of Augustus is pretty much gamer's bingo. In Rise of Augustus, you're playing as, I guess, you're consultants of Octavius, trying to expand on Rome. And in the game, you get these 3 objective cards, which have symbols on it. Okay, and you get 7 legionnaires to start with, these little wooden dudes that you can place on these symbols. And when you complete a group of symbols on one of these objective cards, you yell Ave Caesar, and you get a benefit usually on the objective card that you can do. And then you choose another objective card. And you can also choose to take these tiles, which will give you victory points. There's 2 sets of tiles. There's one for objectives completed, and then there's one for, I think it's called resources completed. And now with the objective completed tile row, it goes from 2 to 10 points. And you have a chance to take these tiles, depending on how many objectives you completed. But you can only take one. So you have to have it. You have to make a decision on whether you want to take a tile that is worth, 4 victory points, or do you want to hold off and push your luck and take one that's worth, 6, 8, 10 points later on, as long as it's available. Okay. Now with the other one, the resource tiles, as long as you fulfill the requirement of that tile, you can take it. So like there's one where if you complete 3 objective cards with green countries on it, you'll get, I think it's 4 points. You can take that one. Or if you get 3 senators, it's worth 2 points. You can take that one. Anybody can take it as long as it's available, and you can have multiple ones of them. Okay. And then there's also 2 other tiles. There's a gold tile and a wheat tile, which is worth 5 victory points each. And as long as you have the majority of that, either gold or wheat, you will have that 5-point token, tile. If another player, ends up getting the majority later on, they can take that away from you, and then whoever has it at the end of the game will get those 5 points. Now, the game is won by whoever has the most victory points at the end of the game, and this is done by one player being the town crier, and they will draw tokens out of a bag, and they will, say what the token is. It could be a standard or swords or a dagger or whatever, and then players will take their legionnaires and match up the symbols on their objective cards. They'll either take them from their supply if they have them, and if they don't, if they run out of that and they're all on their objective cards, they can move them from one objective card to another. Okay, and then whenever somebody fulfills the requirement of the objective cards, meaning they have enough legionnaires on their objective card, they yell Ave Caesar. And so they continue to do this until one player has 7 objective cards completed, and then everybody adds up their score depending on, the victory points on the card or the special abilities each objective card will give you. Whoever has the most victory points at the end of the game wins. This is one that I played recently, over the weekend with the Don games, and after the, second or third round, they pretty much had it. It gets a little confusing with all the symbols on it, but once you get the hang of that, it's a pretty easy game, But it's not too tough that somebody can't pick it up pretty easy. So that was Rise of Augustus. And the final one here is One Night Ultimate Werewolf. Now, One Night Ultimate Werewolf is a hidden role game. Okay, and basically what it is there's werewolves in a village that are killing off villagers. Alright, so the game's broken up into a day phase and a night phase. And what'll happen is you'll get these roles. There's in a 5-player game, it varies depending on the amount of players, and this goes up to 10. It goes from 3 players to 10. But in a 5-player game, you would have 2 werewolves, a robber, a troublemaker, and a seer, and then 3 villagers. Okay, and basically what you'll do is you'll shuffle all these tiles up. You'll hand 1 tile to each player, and then 3 tiles will go in the center of the board, of the table rather. Okay, and if you're the werewolf, you are trying to not be caught by the villagers. Okay, and if you're the villagers, you're trying to kill at least 1 werewolf. So what'll happen is the night phase will come, everybody will close their eyes, and then a series of events will happen. First, the werewolves will close their eyes, or open their eyes rather, and they'll see who the other werewolves are, if there are any. There could be some in these 3 tiles in the middle of the table, like I was saying. Okay, and then they'll close their eyes, and then the seer open her eyes, his or her eyes, and then the seer has the ability to look at another player's tile to see if they're a werewolf or not. Okay, and then it'll go over to the robber. Okay, and the robber will swap tiles with another player, and then they will have the opportunity to look at the tile that they swap with. Okay, and finally, the troublemaker will blindly swap a tile with another player, and then everybody opens their eyes, and then there's discussion on who everybody thinks are the werewolves. Okay, so then there's a vote. Everybody will point to who they think is the werewolf. If there's a tie, then both people in the tie will flip over their tiles. And if there's one werewolf killed, the villagers win. If there's no werewolves killed, the villagers lose. Okay, pretty easy game. It's a variant of several other different types of werewolf games. Saboteur, Werewolf, Ultimate Werewolf, Inquisition. There's quite a few variants to this type of game. But this is really quick. This one was like, with 5 players, it was like 10 minutes at the most, and that was the initial game to try and get people to, you know, understand what was going on. But we played this one like 3 or 4 times in a row, back to back, and it was under a half hour. You know, so it's a real quick game. This, like any of those hit and roll games, depends on the group you're playing with. But this one is a really good hit and roll game. That's pretty much my list here. Again, there are no order of my favorite or least favorite or whatever. They're just 10 games I think anybody who is new to the hobby can pick up on. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Get gaming, have fun, and I'll see you next time.